This
No,
conference will now be recorded.
it has no ML, so that it's designed and built for the finance analyst, not data scientists or IT. I'm also co-founder of the Finance Analytics Institute, where through research, through benchmarks, and our Analytics Academy, we help finance departments implement data-driven decisions through a fusion of finance and analytics. I'm co-author of the book, Implementing an Analytics Culture for Data-Driven Decisions. I also have a deep mathematical background. I have a Bachelor of Engineering and Masters of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I'm also a registered professional engineer in the state of California in mechanical engineering. And for my civics activities, I'm a member of Stanford University's Hoover Institution. So with that, let's begin. So our goals today are two. One is we want to lay out the roadmap for how to rapidly simulate risk and scenario planning. And the second is to build analytics models to manage action plans, risks, business results, and position for rapid recovery. Now, everyone today right now is focused on the downside. A lot of time and intelligence is going, what do we do? What do we do when our supply chain changes or our supply chain collapses or stores or retail shops are closed? And you have to also think of the upside. The upside is as important as the downside, because if you're not prepared and planning today for the upside, you could be crushed by it as well. So downside and upside are equally as important. So a little bit of humor to start the morning. We have our jungle animals here gathered around the corporate board table. And it says, I believe it's time we stop relying so heavily on instinct. A little amusing, but it's true, and we do that in the best of times. And these aren't the best of times. We're in times that are rapidly changing, and now more than ever, we need data-driven decisions from analytics. So let's begin with the rapid risk planning methodology. First, we have 5 steps. So first is we structure scenarios. We'll go over all of these in detail. Second, we'll collect data and build a model. Now you'll notice that the arrow between number 1 and number 2 is a two-way arrow. And you'll see that as we go through the 5 steps. Because as we learn something about one step, it may cause us to rethink, for example, something that we learned about the data we collected or the model that we built may cause us to rethink the structure of our scenario. Then once we have structured our scenario, collected the data, and built the model, we want to run the scenario. And then we want to review the outcomes of those scenarios. And then once we have that, we have the model in place and the views in place, then we can develop action plans. So these 5 steps are your rapid risk planning methodology. And in the middle of all of that, as you go around the circle, you must communicate and you must manage change. Where normally in business, we're in a very dynamic environment, we're even more so now. So some guardrails on scenario planning. You have to reduce the infinite variables to the finite. What are the key drivers? For example, if you're a retail store that sells women clothing, you don't need to know about the price of pork bellies in China. You need to understand what are the things that are key to the drivers of your business. And they're not an infinite number, they're a finite number. Number 2, no more than 3 scenarios. You have the best case, a worst case, and a planning case. And the other part about that is when you do your planning, it's not time-stamped by the hour. In other words, we haven't done a morning plan, and now it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we need to do another plan. You have to settle on 3 scenarios, and you then monitor those scenarios as you go forward. We'll talk more about that. Third, you need to establish a rapid response team. They have to prepare the response, review it, and deliver it. And the people on the team obviously should be smart, but they also have to be data-driven. All too often, like our jungle animals before, we're running on instinct. More than ever, we need to be driven by data. They need to be candid. Very important. CEOs especially want to drive their organizations to do something. And at times, especially times like these, the people on the rapid response team have to be very candid, and they have to be able to push back. Innovative, obviously. We're in difficult times. It's going to require things out of the ordinary. So people that can think innovatively and, of course, are in positions to mobilize resources. Number 4, plans must be realistic. Plans are realistic. Time frames are realistic. The resources have to be what we call realistic, because we have to distinguish between what we want the future to be or what we need the future to be, but what can practically be done. We're in a very dynamic environment of very, very large extremes, and that's going to happen both on the downside and the upside. So realism is very important here. Okay, let's begin. Number 1, structure the scenarios. First, you're going to say, well, Robert, this is wonderful, but we've never experienced anything like this. This is what they call a black swan event. We're making history. We're in the middle of history. So what do we do? Where do we start? Well, while this may be a black swan event, it's not without precedent. In other words, for example, let's say you're a retailer. Let's say you're a freight transportation company. Take something even different like that. Things have happened to you. For example, like a hurricane. Hurricanes happen. And when they happen, they have a beginning where you learn that the hurricane is coming. They have a middle where the hurricane happens. And then they have a recovery where you dig out of the hurricane aftermath and you get down to business. And in that time, it's a dramatic impact on business. Business shutters, it closes, it stops, and then it goes into a lull, and then it restarts. So we do have extreme things that have happened to us in our business, and those are the things that we're going to look to help us model what's happening right now. And the third element is we're going to have to make an assumption. At the end of the day, we're going to have to say, what do we think this environment from the start, the downside, to the recovery looks like? And there are many letters of the alphabet that you can use. There's what people are talking about, a lot of people talk about today, is a V. We're hard down and then we go hard up. A U, where we go down, we meander along the bottom and then we come up. An L, where we go down and then we kind of just meander for a long time. That's more like the recovery that we had after the 2008 recession. And then a W, we go down, we come up. There's a relapse, the virus resurges, we go down, we go up again. So these are the things that you're going to have to think about when you structure your scenarios. And then you think about through your risk factors with your customers, your employees, your suppliers. How do we get back re-engage, I should say, our customers? When do we have to recall our employees? Those kinds of risk factors. And what is the government doing? I mean, right now the government is closing down many a business. So when are they going to allow us to reopen? And how is the government regulations going to change my business model? Key drivers, again, what are the key variables of your business? What are the key volume drivers of your business? And what are the key external and internal indicators you need to correlate? These are things that you're going to have to do, but keep it finite. It's not an infinite number, only the ones that are important to your business. And then, of course, when you have that, you put it together in the scenarios. What's my revenue? What's my profit, inventory, cash flow, and so forth? Okay. Now, with regard to risk, when you're thinking about your risk factors, you can use this simple matrix. The x-axis is what we call materiality, and the y-axis is volatility. So in the lower left-hand quadrant, there's something called ignore. So if my business is not particularly dependent, if you will, on rent, in other words, that's a small part of my financial cost structure, well, rent doesn't change that much. So it's not material and it's not volatile. I ignore it. If there are things that have materiality but high volatility, those we have to do things like set thresholds. For example, back in, again, 2000, I think it was 9, when the price of gas shot up to over $4 a gallon, that literally shut down the market for sales of SUVs in the United States. In the lower right-hand quadrant, we have exceptions and anomalies. And that's going to be things that could be like a cure. It's highly, highly material, but it's not very volatile. It either happens or it doesn't happen. So if there's a cure, if some scientist in some lab tomorrow comes up with a cure for COVID-19 and it works 100% of the time, that will solve a lot of problems. But that is an exception and anomaly. And where we focus our attention is in the upper right-hand quadrant, which things are continuously monitoring. For example, right now, regulations. What is the government doing to change the way I operate my business and how I can construct a business model that's profitable? All right, now we're up to the second part of our 5 steps, which is collect data and build the model. So first part's collect data. Obviously, you're going to collect financial, operating, and external data. You need, very important, reliable sources of data. They need to be consistent, they need to be relevant, they need to be right. And you also need to know the owners. The ownership of who owns each of the sources now is very important, because that's the person we have to come back to if we find things that are either wrong in the data or we need changes to the data. And you need a dimensional line of sight: region, country, state, product group, product category, product. You must have granularity. You cannot do this type of planning in these, not only in regular times, but in these tremendously stressed times, without a high level of granularity that takes you from the highest level of the company to the lowest level of the company. So now we're ready to build our model, and we have to have a tool. And the tool that we have to have must be detailed and analytic. Spreadsheets are not detailed. We struggle with dimensionality. We also struggle with analytics with spreadsheets, because we have to know what we're doing to do any kind of sophisticated modeling. Well, what about business intelligence or visualization or budgeting tools? They have an ability to do granularity, but the problem being is that they're not very analytical. So that would be a problem. The last one is we need purpose-fit AI-enabled analytics tools. And there are many out there. Aurora is one of them. But you say, I don't have budget for it. We don't have availability of people or time right now. The analytics, first of all vendors of all software products, or I should say almost all vendors of all software products, provide 2 weeks to 4 weeks of trial period. So go ahead, take advantage of those periods to use those tools to do your planning. And many vendors right now are also giving out offering special offerings so that people can use their tools during the COVID crisis. Aurora is one of those vendors that does that. So you can find them, they're out there, and you should be using them. Rapid model implementation. Remember something. In this time, stress time, time is your enemy. The longer it takes you to do this, the harder it's going to be to get through it. And errors are poison. And this is one of the reasons why you can't really use spreadsheets. They're not detailed, and they're so riddled with errors, even the ones that you've been using over and over for many years. So, rapid model implementation. Okay, we're ready. Let's now go and start doing some examples of artificial intelligence and analytic scenarios. And that way we can see how we would take our 5 steps. So we're going to go out and we're going to do, we ran a scenario, we gathered data, we built a model, and now what we're going to do is run the models. And we're going to do this in the context of our planning. We're going to do 2 cases here. One is a manufacturer of consumer and business electronic products. And here, our scenario is going to be that we think that the way to combat this COVID crisis is through our product portfolio management. The second thing we're going to do is a small retail or variety of products. And we're actually going to do artificial intelligence forecasting and simulations, and we're going to do a Monte Carlo risk simulation. Now, some pointers of note, we're going to be using Aurora Lights. The reason we're using it is because it is specifically designed for finance. So there's no coding, there's no ML, there's no data scientists, there's no IT. The models are loaded. What you're going to see now, these models have been built in minutes from spreadsheet data. So unlike ML, machine learning, where you need high quality data, we're using Lights because we don't need that ultra high quality data. Okay, first, we have a manufacturer of business and consumer electronics, and we want to optimize our operating income via portfolio management. So here's a screenshot of Aurora Lights, and I just want to give you an orientation just to be familiar. In the right-hand window is what we call a drill path, and it's like a pivot table. These are the filters. And in our drill path, users can organize the filters in a hierarchical fashion, and it will be visualized. And this is visualized by product group, product, and distributor. Then we have a report in the middle, which has values in it. Again, just like a pivot table. We have filters and now values. And like a pivot table, we have rows. We call these fields on the left-hand side. And then we have our columns, just like a pivot table, although the columns in Aurora Light are smart columns, and they do a whole variety of variance analysis, predictions, analytics, and so forth. And it's all done up here through our ribbons. We have a home, forecast, dashboard, report, and so on. So this is a little orientation of what you're seeing. So the idea is that Aurora Lights behaves very much like Excel, and it has an intuitive interface and behaves kind of like a super pivot table. So the first thing we want to do is we want to focus down here on operating income. And let's blow this up. And we can see that our operating income year to date in this manufacturer of business and consumer electronics is about $2.7 billion. And what we want to do now is we want to use the drill path to drill down on operating income so we can see which product groups are the highest contributors to operating income. And for that, we're just going to click our drill down icon. And we're going to come up with the new report that's a drill down. And let's blow this up. And we're going to see here that of our product groups of computers, inkjets, laser jets, monitors, and scanners, that laser jets are by far the largest contributor to operating income, nearly 40%. So that's good to know. Now, there's one more thing I'm going to point out. We're not going to explore it in our webcast today, but it's highly important in how businesses make decisions. So when you're doing COVID-19 planning and so on, and regular operations, this column here called the 12-month predicted trend direction is incredibly important. It's a piece of built-in analytics. You don't have to write any code for it. You don't have to train it, but it tells you, it predicts the future of the trend. So in this case, for laser jets, the year-over-year trend is up by 5.23%. And the prediction is this trend is going to continue to go up over the next 12 months. So with those predictive arrows, which can go north, south, and northeast and southeast, we can get a new way to make decisions. In other words, we can find the good trends that are going to go bad, which we've never even thought about before. This way we can close the barn door before the horse leaves. We can find bad trends that are going to get better so we don't have to work on them. And we can find good trends that are going to get better, like the ones that you can see here that tells us we have pricing power. And we have bad trends that are going to get worse, which are really going to tell us these are the things that we have to work on. Very powerful. We're not going to see it here, but I do want to make it you aware that it exists within Aurora. The next thing we want to do is we want to convert the whole dollars we've been working with. So we've learned, I as the analyst for my COVID-19 rapid response team have learned that LaserJets provides the most operating income. But in order to manage my portfolio, I really need to know which products are the most efficient at generating operating income, because my assumption is in our planning scenario that if we're going to have less sales of products, I really need to sell the products that are most efficient at generating operating income so that every sale counts. So we're going to come back and we're going to, let me blow this up over here. I'm blowing up the ribbon. And we want to come and pull down where it says efficiency driver up top here. And we want to pull down everything in Aurora is selectable, as you can see. And we want to change our financial data from straight dollars to dollars per unit sold. And when we do that, we're going to find what our efficiency is now. And I've slided the report over to the right to reveal this column called the mean, so the average, which is the KPI. So what we're looking at now is the average operating income per unit sold. Let's blow that up. So we can see that there's $372 on average of operating income per unit sold at the highest level of our company. In other words, the consolidated level. So on average across all our products, we're generating about $372 of operating income per unit sold. Now, let's drill down on this. Okay, so now what we're going to see back again is our product groups. And we're going to see LaserJets, and let's blow this up, is that LaserJets generates the most operating income per unit sold. So not only does it generate the most operating income, but it's also the most efficient at generating operating income. And by using this efficiency driver of per unit sold, of operating income per unit sold, we're normalizing the data. In other words, we can make apples to apples comparisons. So here we find out that LaserJet's quite efficient at $531. But again, not all LaserJets are created equally. So we're going to drill down into LaserJets. And what we're going to see, and let's blow this up, is that LaserJets, the Laser 60XT1 generates by far the highest operating income per unit sold. Very high, $1,142 on average of operating income per unit sold across all our distributors, across all their stores. And we're going to find that these other two, the Laser 602XT and the Laser 6001 PTM, have also very high operating income per unit sold. So these three products are our most efficient products at generating operating income per unit sold. So now, again, I have something to talk to the team about and start thinking how we're going to use this to our benefit. Now, there's another thing I want to do before the whole team meets and we start developing our plans is, now that I know which products are most efficient at generating operating income per unit sold, I want to know correlatively, are there products that I sell that also drive sales of my most efficient products? So we're going to have a little different report now. This now we're going to use in our columns up here as a correlative report. And we're going to pull down here our correlation drivers, and we're going to pick the LaserJet 60 XT1, which is our most efficient product to generate operating income, and we want to correlate it with all our other products. And here are all our other products here in the drill path. And we're going to see when we blow this up that there are two products that are correlated with our LaserJet 60 XT1. And that's the Monitor 21 and the Scanner 757U. Now, if we know the coefficient of correlation, these numbers here, then we know that these things are weakly correlated. But Aurora Lights doesn't assume that people remember their college statistics. And therefore, we put these little icons over here. So we all know cell bars. 1 cell bar is weak, 2 cell bars is good, 3 cell bars is very good, and 4 cell bars is great. So we can see these two products, which I happen to know as the analyst, have marginally good efficiency at generating operating income, are also correlated with sales for my LaserJet 60 XT1. Very important. So now I can help in thinking about how we're going to structure marketing plans with these two products to sell more LaserJet 60 XT1. Now, I'm also a very good analyst, and I went ahead and I did more correlations, and what I found was a whole group of products that are correlated to the PC4220. And it happens to be that two products, the LaserJet 6001 PTM and the LaserJet 602 XT, which are second and third most profitable products, are also correlated. So again, we've just learned more about our business. And what we've learned is as follows. By using efficiency drivers, we've been able to find through the units sold to distributors those products that are most efficient in driving operating income to better direct marketing. And we've also used correlations to learn what products drive sales of our most efficient products at generating operating incomes. Very important. Now, again, when we come back as the team and we're starting to do our planning, when we start to develop plans for how we can generate more sales, we have these two very powerful points of where to go in our business. But we're not done yet. Now that we know our three most efficient products, now we know the correlations, now we want to understand how we can better sell for our distributor network. So we're changing our report from a P&L, and we want to look at the units sold to the distributors. So before we were using our units sold to distributors as an efficiency driver, as a denominator. But now we're looking at the actual units sold. We're seeing there's 274,000 units sold on a year-to-date basis. And what we want to do now is use a different drill path. This one is, this is the drill path by, same one by product group, by product distributor. But now we want to look at our distributors who sell the LaserJet. And you can see we have a group of them here, CompUSA, Fry's, Intercom, Microage, and so on. And when we drill down into these, let's blow this up, we find that micro-age, by far, is our largest distributor, seller of our product, not even close. And so now we want to understand which micro-age stores are selling, and we're going to drill down into micro-age. But I also want you to remember this. We're going to come back and we're going to drill down into fries, and will become apparent in a moment. So we drill down onto micro-age, and what we find, let's blow this up, is that 2 stores in Philadelphia and Seattle are selling the ever-loving daylights out of our most efficient product, our Laser 60XT1, which generates a tremendous amount of profit for us. But the rest of the micro-age stores aren't really selling all that many products. So we have 2 stores that are doing a great job. The other stores aren't, and therein lies our opportunity. Because now I want to come back to fries. Here we are, fries. I do a drill down on fries, and what I find in fries is how uniform the sales in fries are throughout all their stores, including stores in Philadelphia and Seattle. So what have we learned? Well, we learned the drill path that found the best distributor and the best stores that are most successful in selling the most efficient products. We also were able to find distributors that will teach us how to make more sales of the most efficient product to generate operating income, and those that will help us make it more uniform across all stores. So, through efficiency drivers, correlations, granularity, we learned what to do to make each sale more efficient in generating operating income when we expect to have lower volume of product sales. This is what we're going to take back. Through this analysis that we've done, which has all been literally point and click analysis, through this, what we have found is now we can take these things to our product planning team, our rapid response team, and we can start talking through them and saying, how do we make more sales of our most efficient products, knowing the people who are doing it very successfully now and learning from them. Okay, now let's go on to forecasting, AI-enabled forecasting and Monte Carlo risk simulations. But before I do that, I need to prove something to you. I need to prove that we can do artificial intelligence forecasting, and that it has high accuracy, and that we can do it without data scientists. And I'm going to take, in this example, 7 public companies. So we're going to do it across 7 companies, and we're going to do it across half dozen industries, and we're going to do it over 5 quarters. So we have a different view here. We have a trend quarterly, and I want to show you the companies. These are going to be in banking, in energy, in manufacturing, in telecom, and in transportation. These are 5 different segments, industries, and we have 7 companies. And the time frame we're going to forecast is from the first quarter of 2003 to the first quarter of 2004, first quarter of 2013, the first quarter of 2014. And we're going to use this time period because if you remember when the recession ended in June of 2009, there was a very weak recovery, and by the end of 2012, people were very anxious. Were we going to fall back into a recession? So it was a very uncertain time, and we're going to run the forecast against those uncertain times on public companies. So this is all public data. And in some ways, it's similar to where we are right now. We're in a position of very uncertain times. And we're going to forecast this field here, this row, revenue, we call it revenue forecast. And we're going to do this through one-touch artificial intelligence. So what we do is we click the one-touch here, and a screen is going to pop up, this window in the middle here. And we're going to let the user comes in, and the user selects. I as the user, I as the analyst, am selecting the various nodes, dimensions, filters, however you want to call it, that I'm interested in forecasting. And here I'm interested in forecasting all the segments of banking, energy, manufacturing, telecom, and transportation. And I'm interested in forecasting this field called revenue forecast. And I want to forecast, we can forecast up to 5 years. We're going to forecast out to March 2014. And what we're going to now see is the calculated dimensions, calculated forecast. And let's blow this up. And what we're going to find is our revenue forecast field has now been calculated. And we can compare that to the revenue actual across all the industries we've selected. And we can measure a percent error. So a 0.5% error tells us that we had 99.5% accuracy. And you can see we go from a 0.5% error in the first quarter of 2013 to a 2.5% error in the first quarter of 2014. Red means the forecast was higher than the actual. Blue means the forecast was lower than the actual. That way we can measure if there was any skewness in the forecasting. So we have highly accurate forecasting. We're going to drill down, and we're going to look at each of the industries here across banking, energy, manufacturing, telecom. And what we're going to see is that other than the second quarter in energy and the first quarter of 2014 in manufacturing, all our values are very, very high accuracy, ranging from a 92, point, like this one over here, 0.3% error, which is a 99.7% accuracy, ranging from 92% accuracy to 99% accuracy. So my point here is that AI-enabled forecasting, like the type we do in Aurora Lights, can be very, very accurate across a great many businesses. And this is important as we start our next scenario. A couple of words of note, though. I don't want people to get the impression that AI-enabled forecasts are the end of forecasting. AI-enabled forecasts get the bias out of forecasts, but they're the starting point. They're a starting point because they don't replace the human. They help the human, because as a human, I may know something about the future. I may know something that's going to happen in November, at the end of the year, that the data doesn't know. A major customer is going to come or a major customer is going to go. I may know something as a human from my field knowledge that I can add to the forecast that will make it more accurate. And that's why we call it blending man and machine. All right. Now, let's do an AI-enabled forecast simulation in Monte Carlo for our small retailer. So here we have a small retailer of a variety of retail products. And we can see this drill path is by category, channel, product group, and then underneath that is the actual product, the SKU. And we are going to, in our case, do forecasting about revenue. And we can see that this model is set up for 2020. So this is, in our case, February 2020. We're now in, data's current to February 2020. And we can see that down here in our chart, our year-over-year chart. The black bars are the current year, and we're current to February 2020. And the blue bars are last year. We're looking at the revenue. So now what we want to do is do some AI-enabled forecasting of this. And we're going to start, and we're going to run our AI-enabled scenario. So first thing we want to do is establish an artificial intelligence baseline forecast as if nothing were wrong with the year. So we're going to come here. We're going to open our one-touch window. We're going to select at the highest level sum total. We're going to forecast revenue. We're going to do it through December of 2020. And we're going to drive our forecast all the way down through all our categories, all our channels, all our product groups, and all our SKUs. And now what we're going to get, as you can see, is our AI-enabled forecast for the year, as it shows in the chart. Now the black bars are all full throughout the year. But this is the year that assumes that we don't have COVID. Now we're ready to do our simulations, starting from our assumption. Our assumption in this case is going to be that we have a V-shaped recovery. In other words, we're going to go down, and then we're going to recover up sharply. And we're going to do that simulation through this simulation icon here. We're going to click that, and then we're going to select on the fly. And up is going to pop the simulation window. And what we have here is the forecast that has been made at the highest level, our corporate level, our sum total level, for the rest of the year, from March through December. And let's blow that up. And now what we're going to do is run our simulation. So we're going to come in here. We're going to say, okay, March is not going to be 100% because we're going to close our store starting in the second half of March. So we're going to reduce March through this area down here. We're going to reduce March by 50%. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that for the rest of the months. So we reduce March 50%. Then in our simulation, remember, we're making a simulation now. We're saying that April and May are going to be closed. So like here in California, as it is through most of the United States, retail stores are closed. So April and May are closed. So we're going to have 100% or negative 100%. In other words, no revenue. And then we're going to say, okay, June, we're going to come back. But people want to really come back. They have cabin fever. They've been cooped up. And we're going to have a slow opening in June, and then we're going to tear off in the second half of June. So we're only going to say June's going to be down by 20%. And then we can see that July, August, September, our sales are going to just shoot up by 50%. They're going to come down to 20% in October, and we're going to level off to a normal year in November and December. So this is my planning scenario. And you're going to see why I don't have to do 100 of these. I only need to do one of these. And you're going to see when we get into Monte Carlo why I can select different styles of V, an L, or a U. All right. So this is my assumption that we're going to use for our planning purposes. And then we're going to go ahead. We're going to roll this up. In other words, really in our case, we're going to roll it down. We're going to do this across all our departments, all our channels, all our product groups, all our SKUs. And then we're going to commit this to the database. And now you can see in our chart that we've changed our forecast. We have April and May are now 0, and then July, August, September, and into October, we have a big ramp up in sales, and then we get back to normal for the rest of the year. So this is the scenario that is now available for Monte Carlo risk analysis. And for that, we're going to click the Monte Carlo icon, and it's going to give us a graph here. So what are we seeing here? What we have are these bands, and each band represents a confidence interval. And we're doing this V, if you will, this V-shaped band. So we go down, and then we go up. And the purple line is the mean value of the forecast that we just generated. And then around the band is a yellow band, which is we call our first confidence interval. Then we have our orange band, which is the second confidence interval. And then we have the red band, which is the third confidence interval. So think of our yellow band as our planning case. And then as we go up to orange and upper red, we have our planning case, our better case, and our best case. And if we go to the other side of the yellow, we have our not so good case and our even, maybe I will call that our worst case scenario. So we're given three scenarios. And the important part is that the size of these bands is based upon the statistical volatility in our business. So it isn't me sitting here and saying, gee, I think we're going to do $1 million plus or minus 10%. No, we're doing a statistical forecast, a statistical artificial intelligence forecast that we've adjusted based upon things that we know, like our stores are closed, we certainly know that, and certain assumptions that we're going to make about the style of the recovery, in this case a V style and the degree to which. And then as you can see, the bands will lay themselves out, good, better, best, based upon not what we think it should be, and not about whether it's some maybe 10 or 20% plus or minus, but what is statistically the volatility in our business. And so now we have these three cases from our one risk scenario plan. So we've distilled, as we started this, the infinite to the finite. We have our best case, our worst case, and our planning case. And if we bring up a chart of values, our one forecast gives us these planning, better, best, worst. So if we're here, let's say we're now in April, we're going through April, and we think that things are going the way we planned or the way we envisioned it. And June, then we can expect some $1 million of revenue. And if we think that that there's going to be some more slowness in adoption, in other words, people social distancing, we're not going to get as many people through the stores, or government is going to limit us in who can come through, the number of people that can come through the stores, or they're going to require face masks, and there are people that say, I'm just not going to wear a face mask. We could go to the lower end of the first standard deviation, which would be planning for $800,000. Or if we think things are not going to open well, or we're going to be delayed in opening in June, we may go down to the lower end of $320,000. So as time goes on, we'll be able to better gauge where we are in our planning scenarios of our planning case, our good, better, best kind of case, either high or low. So what did we learn? We learned that, first of all, AI-enabled forecasts can be highly accurate, and they're a great starting point for risk simulations. We learned that you don't have to be spot on in what we're going to use as our number, because Monte Carlo will give us a planning range. And we learned that Monte Carlo isn't going to give us some random, kind of like, oh, gee, plus or minus 10%. It's actually going to give us these ranges based upon the unbiased forecast and based upon the volatility that's statistically in our business. So all of these things are very powerful now, which now we can go in the two scenarios we've done, one for the manufacturer, consumer and business electronics, or for this one, where our small retailer, we now have run through our structure, our scenario. We collected data, we built models, we ran an AI-enabled scenario, and we reviewed the outcomes of the scenario, which is where we are now, where we can evaluate outcomes and relationships. So in other words, like we found in our manufacturer the most efficient products to generate operating income and their correlations. we found unexpected relationships and anomalies. Like, for example, in microwave, we found they had ultra high sales of our most efficient product, where fries had uniformity of sales. And we can measure the risks and opportunities about that, where we did in our retailer, we did a forecast, we did a Monte Carlo quantitative risk simulation, and we gave us our highs and lows. And so when we review these scenarios, we can now, as analysts, bring them back to our planning team to develop action plans. And that takes us to step 5. So we're going to select an action plan, one action plan. So we're going to take either our V assumption, or we're going to take our L or U or W, or pick another letter of the alphabet. But whatever that assumption was when we structured the scenario is what we're going to use now to build a plan around. So we identify the immediate steps that we have to do, we assign responsibilities, we establish regular measurement reporting and correction review meetings. This isn't hourly, this isn't daily, but it's probably weekly. It's certainly no less than weekly when we're together and we're doing this. We may have to rerun a scenario because as time goes on, as things happen, as we learn more, we may have to rerun a scenario, but only if necessary. As we saw with the Monte Carlo simulation, it gives us bands of risk analysis. And we must iterate and communicate. And by the way, this is not something we're going to do this week or this month or next month. This is a situation that we're going to be in all through 2020, and we're going to need this type of analytics to make data-driven decisions so that we can do the best planning possible that mitigates as much risk on both the downside and the upside. So this can work for you. It can work for, even though we talked about manufacturing, distribution, retail, or even though we talked about multi-billion-dollar businesses or few million-dollar businesses, what we're doing with analytics, what we're doing with this tool, what we're doing with demand and revenue can also work across all different industries. And we saw that with the artificial intelligence forecast across all different industries. And data. It doesn't have to be just demand data. It can be cost data. It could be headcount data. We could be a technology company and we want to predict those sales that are going to close this month or this quarter. We could be a healthcare company and we're very concerned about our profit because elective surgeries are no longer being done. So how are we going to manage to make profit? We could be a healthcare provider where we're looking at our costs. We have costs from all sorts of things that are happening now that are driving. People are hitting our emergency room and our ICUs. Transportation companies, operations, whether we're a commercial airline provider or a freight train operator. Government. We need to do analysis beyond spreadsheets on how we're going to reopen the economy. For nonprofit institutions, what are we going to do about grant and giving during this COVID-19 crisis? So across all different industries, across all different types of data, cost data, operations data, demand data, and financial data. So that's what we've covered. This is my contact information, and I'll open it up for any questions that we might have. Mohammed, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert. I think it was such an insightful and highly practical presentation. And I think, yeah, this is the need of an hour. We should, as you mentioned, we have to do different scenario planning, based forecasting, as you know, obviously the future is so uncertain, we don't know really. So we have to obviously prepare for different scenarios, different probabilities and possibilities. So I guess this is such a need of an hour, what you mentioned. There are a few questions, Robert, for you. One is from Purushottam. Actually, he's from the sales and marketing background. He asks that it is always our wish to high margin products, but in reality, the sales is always dictated what the market consumer wants. A deep dive internal analysis is good as it gives us good insight, but most important is how to evaluate the external factors. Does this tool has anything for that?
Yes. Yes to both. Yes, it's a good question, and yes to that too. In terms of outside factors, one of the things I did was correlation on inside. In other words, what products drive the sales of our profitable products. But we also have correlations that can be run externally. Like, for example, you can bring in all sorts of external data, unemployment data, consumer sentiment, interest rates, price of gas, those types of things that affect consumer behavior. And you can find through them, just the way we did it in the correlation report, which of those correlatively relate to sales of a variety of different products. We also have, which we again didn't have time to see, what internal action as well as external action, things like, again, unemployment, consumer sentiment, you pick it, are leading indicators of, correlate as leading indicators with, in this case, product sales. So yes, these things are built into the tool and are available both internally we can do correlations, externally we can do correlations, all on a point-and-click basis, just as you saw.
Right. And another question is, I will just try to summarize it from Shakil, that we are living in so uncertain time. How can we be realistic about predicting things which are uncertain? For example, decline in oil price. Oil sector is passing through a very difficult time. It's not sure when the prices will go up. And like how AI can help in these type of situations.
Yeah, this question is spot on, because when we talk about certainty, we can never obviously be certain about the future. In fact, there's a wonderful quote I use from a guy by the name of George Box, a famous statistician, and he said, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And that's the best way to think of analytics and artificial intelligence. What we're trying to do with this technology is, number one, be unbiased. As humans, we're biased. Humans, we have needs. We have political needs, we have political pressures, we have personal needs, we have personal wants, we have all these things. So when we're working in spreadsheets, or we're working in BI tools, or we're working in budgeting tools, we're always giving our biased view of the future. It's really what we want the future to be. Even though we're good businessmen, we're good businesswomen, even though we're good at what we do, and we're trying hard to discern the future, we still are human. And there are things that we really want to happen. So when we're dealing with things that are highly uncertain, especially now, we really need to flesh out that bias, the natural bias that's in our business. And of course, we have pressures. I mean, when we're working, especially with our darling CFO, our darling CEO, who's always driving our company for more, we need to do, and especially times like this, to say, hey, we want that too, but here's what the data is telling us. So what we're trying to do not just in these stress times, but in any time, analytics and artificial intelligence are trying to give us a starting point of things that are unbiased, that are driven by things that have happened. So we're trying to we are trying to flesh out uncertainty, but we're certainly trying to flesh out what is bias and could lead us to wrong decisions. And wrong decisions, especially in uncertain times, can amplify our mistake.
Okay, that's right. And another question is, for a finance professionals, what would you suggest as the first step towards building the knowledge on the AI-enabled planning forecasting? Are there any certification programs available?
Oh gosh, there are many things you can do. There are a wide variety of, in fact, I think all universities have online courses, community colleges, online courses. You also have in class courses on statistics, artificial intelligence. There are many places you can go to. One, the Finance Analytics Institute. We put on twice a year our Implementing Analytics Academy, where in 2 days, 3 tracks, 19 courses in 21 hours, we teach companies how to implement analytics, data-driven decisions through analytics. So there are a variety of places that you can go that will provide instructions like ML, teaching on ML, teaching on statistics, certification courses. In fact, many universities now have certification courses in artificial intelligence, so you can do that as well. But there's a whole variety of places to go for this, to learn about it and to get smart on it, and also use it. As I mentioned before, all analytic vendors have free time periods, whether it's 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or now through COVID, they have both. Like Aurora has both, not only a free offering, but it also has training to help you use the tool. But you can also go out and see a variety of other analytic vendors and download their tool and use it, and they'll have classes as well. So there's a variety of places to go. It's just as easy as going on the internet.
Okay, Robert, you have some time for more questions? We have actually,
yes, please.
maybe two. Okay. One question is relating to the implementation of AI. Like, what are the essentials for implementing this tool in an organization, and what will be the turnaround time, and how we can align it with the ERP systems? Like, if organization they already are using some ERP system, so how we can align or integrate it with those systems?
Sure. Well, I'll talk to Aurora Lights. That and by the way, whether it's Aurora Lights or any other analytic tool, they all have APIs for integration, for quick integration with any of your systems, whether it's an ERP system, your CRM system like a Salesforce or a Siebel, whatever it may be. They have integration with point of sale systems. So today's day and age, your modern analytic tools are well endowed with capabilities to integrate with all the different transactional systems, whether SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle, whatever they be out there. With regard to implementation of the tool itself with Aurora, Aurora is different than other analytic tools because other analytic tools that have AI use ML. And ML, machine learning, requires that you know machine learning, that you know programming, how to program in machine learning, and that so there is a multi-week, could be 8, 16, or 26 weeks to implement systems like that. Aurora, as you saw, was built, Aurora Lights is built so that we don't have any ML. It has a Excel style interface, so it literally you're up and running in an hour. And we had in 1 hour, 1 hour video, training video, literally you're up and running and you're using lights. And because we can take data from spreadsheets, you can use it even before it's integrated with your ERP system. Because as you know, in finance already has data from all the transactional systems. Aurora Lights can snap on to all that data and give you AI and analytics instantly. So our implementation time ranges from hours to days.
Okay, and there is one more question from Sayed. Do you see an AI ecosystem formation as a result of advances in BI analytics in the next decade to harness the opportunity in the knowledge economy for the gig workers?
Absolutely. I mean, what a timely question. Yes, in fact, that's already happening. I think you'll see more and more and more of that at an accelerating pace. It's especially like in Northern California, it's already there. So it's here, it's now, it's accelerating. I think some of the things though that we're going to have to tackle, which are not the purview of the seminar here, but certainly things that we're going to be talking about in far greater depth and in far greater breadth in the next few years are the speed at which we're advancing AI and the ethical challenges that are going to face us in the not too distant future.
Right, and just last one question I will take more. Regarding the cost of the implementation for AI, as like different companies have obviously different budget for SMEs or for large size organizations. So is it like it could fit within the budget of SMEs as well, or it cost varies, or they want to ask regarding the cost of the implementation?
Sure. Well, costs, again, all analytic vendors, just as all visualization vendors, just as all BI vendors have a variety of costs, and they go from the SME to the large, or SMB, I mean, to the large corporations. For like, again, Aurora has as little as $350 a month for a user. It can go to $20,000 a month for a whole large enterprise with hundreds of users. And you'll find that other vendors have similar kind of offerings from for anything from a single user all the way to users of dozens to hundreds. So again, in today's day and age, modern analytic tools have really advanced. So modern analytics like Aurora Lights has advanced to provide serve the entire range of businesses. And I think where we are special at Aurora is we've done it so that you don't have to be a data scientist, you don't have to have IT, you don't have to have high quality data. If you're a financial analyst, if you're a demand planner, you can use our analytics because the AI and the intelligence has been built into the system. So you can do your job. We'll take care of all the statistics. You just do your job. We'll do the rest.
Right, and it's this application can also be suitable for the service industry as well, right? One question.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I want to say this: we're not alone in that. Aurora Lights, as well as any analytic tool, can be just the same for service companies as it can for product companies, as it can for contract companies. So the answer is yes.
That's fine. I think if anyone has some more question, I think you can see on the screen the contact details. You can send email to Robert if you have further inquiries or questions. You can reach him. And thank you very much, Robert. It was a great session and really the need of an hour for the forecasting for the finance professionals.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you very
Mohammed.
much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the great job you've done to put this event on.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thank you for your time as well, and thank you all the audience for all the questions, and we will see you tomorrow in another session. Thank you, and Robert, take care and stay safe.
You too. Cheers.